Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cast Matters. This is the Family Office series. Again, I have a roundtable of Sue McDermott, Ryan Kerry, Kristen Keith, and Alejandro Nazario. We're continuing our conversation that we've been on for the last few episodes. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the technology evolution. We all have our toes in the water on the technology side, so this will be, I think, a good conversation around kind of what's going on right now and where we think things are going to go from a technology standpoint. Um, so, one of the things we've talked about is having all these separate systems and kind of old systems and those kind of things. It's hard to get the data and get the data structured. So I thought maybe that would be a good place to start. And Alejandro, I know you have is kind of part of what you do. A big part of what you do is helping clients kind of structure all that data so they can get into and get some insights from their data and make sure things are clean and the reporting's good. Do you want to kind of kick off with that and give us some thoughts on kind of what you've seen and from the good, bad, and the ugly side standpoint?
Sure. There's so many technology components that exist today. And as we've talked about in the past, there was a big shift maybe 5, 7 years ago where a lot of these tech companies were focusing their attention on family offices. And that created a world of opportunities to lean in and leverage technology. But what it also created was an opportunity to be inconsistent with the application and adoption of the technologies. And so what we've seen is that some people said, I did a good thing, I bought the software, I started working with it, but then years later they realized that it wasn't maintained properly, or 2 integrations later they realized it wasn't connected properly, we'll say. And so
Yep.
that's one thing that we've been observing quite a bit, and we can't overemphasize the need for a consistent standard in reporting. In private capital world, there's the Institutional Limited Partners Association that's made a big effort in trying to adopt a uniform standard for reporting on private capital data. But
Hmm.
given that not everyone adopts that, you have a lot of capital account statements and a lot of notices that say different things in different ways. And so just wanted to start by saying that there's a lot of different data problems. And if we zoom way out, the good news is that they're just data problems, right? And that's the opportunity. Further on, we can talk a little more about, basic data principles applied in the family office space to improve, we'll say, the health of the data and get more out of it.
I think that's a great segue because I think we would all admit that none of our technology is worth it if we can't get the output right. People don't just buy technologists to put stuff in there. They get it because they need information out of it, reporting, dashboards, metrics, those type of things. And so I know one of the big topics that comes up all the time is, do I need to go best in class or do I need to go, kind of all in one suite type of approach? Kristen and Sue, you guys are obviously, I think, lean more towards the best in class approach with Sage and Addepar. Obviously what Alejandro talked about with the data, then, we'll then chime in with Ryan, because then if we're going to use best in class, we have to have a good integration to push the data back and forth. But Kristen, you want to kind of kick off the conversation around
Sure.
the best in class versus all in one discussion and what you talk to your clients about?
Yeah, well, first I'll just define it for those who don't understand what those two things mean. Usually, when you're buying software and technology, especially in the ERP space of what's the right technology for my business and my family office, there are two different methodologies, and it's either a best-in-class methodology or an all-in-one suite methodology. The all-in-one suite methodology is let me get everything in one system, or let me customize a single system to my needs. So that could be all of your accounting, all of your investment management, portfolio management is the same system, all of your maybe HR needs, all of your reporting and business analytic needs, right? Everything, all of your payables, right? Everything is in one system. And it's kind of like you're a jack of all trades, master of none. So it can work, but typically if you look under the hood in several of the areas, it's not very deep. So it depends. That can work for some family offices and it can be the best approach for some. But for others, and I would say for more established family offices, the best of breed approach is the way to go. The best of breed approach means choose systems that are best in class in their in their niche, right? So Sage Intacct is a best-in-class general ledger and accounting platform. Addepar is a best-in-class portfolio management system. These tools are best in class for what they do. Choose the tools that are going to work best for your family office or are best in class, and then integrate them all back together. Now, the challenging thing is, in many cases, family office they have a patchwork of systems, right, that don't interact well with each other, but they've adapted and they like these systems. So it's an interesting topic to say, when is the right time to evolve, and are we changing all of our systems, or are we changing some of our systems? But the best in class approach says, let's integrate the systems that you like and find our source of truth. What is our single source of truth, if you will? Would that be in your accounting and general ledger system? Would that be in your portfolio management system? Either way, it doesn't matter. Like, both are beneficial because you have all of the data integrated with one another, talking to one another. So it just streamlines things, and you're not copying and pasting information or manually entering in duplicate data into multiple systems. So the best in class approach really says, stick with what works for you, right? You might have two different people working on accounting and another person working on the portfolio management element. So why do I want to change so much about what these people are doing? Let's stick with what works right now, and then have the systems talk to each other, and slowly, again, integrate the systems after that.
Absolutely. Sue, I'm sure you have some thoughts here.
I do. And I think, I think that was an excellent definition, Kristen. Thank you. And if you kind of pick it apart or look at it, that the all-in-one is a little bit of a misnomer, I think. And if you also think about the nature of a family office business and the multidisciplinary activities that happen inside of there, you're never going to have a really single platform that covers everything that business needs. So that's what I sort of mean of all-in-one is a misnomer. It's a little bit like less providers is sort of what it comes down to, because they may need something to augment what the so-called all-in-one brings in a general ledger capacity to facilitate either managing their business, like their financial statements of operating their business, or maybe it's not quite enough on the investment side. So here again, I think best in class to me doesn't always mean 100 different things, right? Maybe it's several products from one provider, and a few products from another, but along with the multidisciplinary, sophisticated professionals that work inside a family office, let them choose the tools that are best suited for their roles instead of asking all of them to concede, and it doesn't quite suit anyone.
Absolutely. So agree with that. And I think Ryan probably speak into that from the standpoint of, if it was, if the all-in-one was always the best solution, there's still a need for your services. But I think, having the best-in-class approach where, Sage Intacct gets up every day talking about how we can create the best world-class GL system with all kind of thing. People at Addepar, how can we create the best world-class investment reporting tool, those kind of things. If you have that, then obviously now you got to integrate those two. You got to bring the data in and make sure that the data gets from one system to the other and accurately. So I know you have a perspective on that, because that's partially why your company exists.
Yeah, it's our MO in life over here. And it also, obviously I'm in the best of breed class. What's interesting too is when I think of the first client we brought over from all-in-one, their accounting staff is less than half of what it used to be. And even though they're running Sage and Addepar, it's because I accredit to they were able to sit there and think about, what do I need to go to Sage? Or in their case, just they had a GL and now they have Sage as their GL. And what they were able to do is say, I'm going to use the Knowledger system to summarize my data and push it over to the GL to drive what I need, not every single transaction, every single security. And then they're very focused on the GL on Sage to say, here's exactly what I need in the format I need and the speed I need, post it how I need it.
I want
Absolutely.
to bring
Go
John
ahead.
back to
Yeah.
one of Alejandro's original opening points is the best in class tools, right? Suited again, like I said, to the professionals that need them. Zooming out, it becomes a data problem, which is solvable. It can be hard and it can take time, but it's solvable.
Absolutely. One of the, I don't want to get us too biased on the best in class approach, but I think there's a lot of research that I think would back that up because as we all talk about, and I just said a few minutes ago, I want my provider, my partner, my vendor waking up every day thinking about how can I innovate in this particular area. And we all know that all companies, software companies and others have limited resources for research, development, innovation, those kind of things. So if you're trying to do 15 different things with your software, where are you going to spend your dollars from an innovation standpoint, from an enhancement standpoint, functionality standpoint? Kristen, when I look at Sage Intacct, especially after being purchased by Sage, and now you got, a much deeper pockets, I'll say, that can really innovate. Some of the things I've seen Sage do with the advanced ownership consolidation module and things like that, they're able to really kind of break apart and move forward. So I'm interested in kind of what your take is when we talk about that and what you hear from your clients and prospects.
So in terms of usability or in terms of functionality?
Both.
So it's interesting because we continue to develop our system to be deeper, but it on the flip side, a lot of family office, prospects and customers are saying, how are our people going to learn this technology, right? We're limited and we're not hiring additional headcount. So you've got to have a system that's easy enough to use, but that is also scalable in the approach that the nice part about my system, Sage Intacct, is we have a huge ecosystem. So we have our own, we have our own implementation and professional services teams, but we also work with yours, John, right? And we work with tons of other partners. So family offices can get help and training a lot of different places, but our functionality continues to get deeper and deeper. So, but our functionality is in and around accounting. And that is what we are at our core, right? We're not going to offer investment management. We are going to continue to get better with accounts payable and automating, the bill pay process. We're going to continue to focus on how can we do partner allocations, right, better, and dynamically allocate at the end of the month based on, fluctuating drivers such as AUM, right, for management fees or revenue or square footage or headcount. There's all kinds of use cases, or the tiered consolidations that you mentioned. There's a lot of interesting use cases, and the more complex a family office, usually the better, the best of breed approach is, because each system is solving for those complex needs. An all-in-one system will fail you at some point. In my opinion, I find them very good if you're just starting out, but the more complex and the more structures that you add to your family office, the more you need technology to solve that picture. But it does need to be, in my opinion, a phased approach. Anytime someone comes to me and says, okay, well, hold on, explain this best of class and talk to me about the three-pronged approach of where it's Sage Intacct and Knowledger and Addepar, yes, I do think you should have all three. Do you need to roll all three out at the same time? No, I would say that's a huge risk, right? And you want to do this in a scalable manner. And whether it's you start with accounting or you start with the portfolio management system, each family office has different priorities. So those things get discussed. But these are systems that are taught to be used by these people, by the employees of family offices that are wearing a number of hats. And I think that's the beauty of it, but it's having the ecosystem like we have right now on this call of a lot of different knowledge coming together. If we can learn it, I can say if I can learn it, I'm not an accountant, right? I'm not a financial professional. If I can learn it, then I would say, the employees of these family offices can learn it as well.
Well, you're exactly right. You and I have worked on some deals together where they come and they do say, I want to do Addepar, and I want to do Arch, and I want to do Sage, and I want to do this, and I want it all done, and we're going to have all these projects running simultaneously, and I think that makes us run
Okay,
for the hills a
ready?
little bit.
Let's do it.
And so we have to have, and we do have strong conversations with the client to say, you know, um, this is not going to be successful. I
Yeah.
hate to break it to you, but you got too much risk you're taking on. It's not going to be successful. Let's really kind of break this into parts. And like you said, everybody has their own priorities. So we're not telling you to one should go before the other, but what are your priorities?
Yeah. I think our job, and even Alejandro could probably speak to this more in this, is to understand the complexities of each family office and to simplify them, right? How can we make these processes easier or automate them or make your life easier? I keep talking about complexities because they can be very complex, but that's our job, and that's our technology's job, is to simplify these things so they are digestible, right? And automated and scalable.
Before I get to Alejandro on answering that question, I wanted to go back up to Sue and ask kind of the same question that I asked Kristen in terms of, Addepar has a mission in life to be the best investment reporting, and facilitation tool. And so I would assume that you have your innovation resources available, the capital to invest in the product. And so you have a much smaller set of things where you want to innovate, which I think makes you go deeper and bring a better product to the marketplace. So I'm gonna let you kind of answer, kind of in response to what Kristen was talking about, maybe the same kind of perspective, and then Alejandro, maybe I'll come back to you to talk about what Kristen was thinking about, was suggesting.
Very similar. Agree with everything Kristen said, John. Just more from an investment perspective, right? So Addepar definitely is constantly innovating in how to get insights out of the data, as well as feature sets relating to investment management and reporting, as a general topic. And that's what we will continue to do, right? We don't have any plans to write a general ledger, or even like general ledger light or anything like that. We look to partner with the best in class other providers like Sage Intacct, and Knowledger, and as well as other tools, right? The 60 plus integrations that are available from Addepar. But to Kristen's point, we focus on what we do well and do best, and spend resources building the relationships and the partner network and infrastructure to support the full needs of the family office.
Absolutely. So Alejandro, kind of coming back to you, Kristen was talking about, we were starting to talk about, as you heard, kind of this process of putting a roadmap together and prioritizing, and then not trying to do 15 projects at the same time. Obviously, you guys are in that world of, you have so many tools that you have access to that you're trying to put together to create the right technology infrastructure of the client. This has got to be right at the heart of what you guys think about on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together. But what we so the first thought we have on software and having the best of breed approach in our world is the narrower the scope of a particular software, the more opportunities it has to be really impactful. The broader the scope, the more often you see, they're doing things that they don't know how to do very well, and you have issues with some all-in-one, as they were saying. And so we do like the narrower scope tools and optimizing for a use case, and then adding more pieces to the puzzle. But the way that we handle these integrations is usually thinking about it in the direction of data flow. And so if we do a roadmap or a data flow diagram that says Addepar is going to connect to Sage, but Knowledger is going to be in the middle, well, it's going in that direction, Addepar to Knowledger to Sage. And we'll assemble the tools such that they are set up properly in sequence. Sometimes there's a parallel path in terms of, let's do Sage and Knowledger kind of at the same time, because they need to be coordinated. But that's usually how we get started. We have a data flow diagram. We say, these are the systems. This is going to be the flow of data in which direction. And then we talk about sequencing them.
Absolutely. Ryan, kind of coming back to the data and the systems integrations, and the innovation that Sage and Addepar and other systems are doing, there's still that connection piece. You still are pulling data from third parties. Addepar will pull custodial data, but it's only as good as the data they get, right? And so then there's got to be some work to structure that data, put it in the right place, those kind of things. So do you want to touch on that for a second?
Sure. And a good example could just be what happened this week with one of our clients, and they were not happy with way they were bringing in the local currencies in Sage, and you just have two systems, and you can even point to fixed income in that, two systems calculating it differently. And we just asked the question to the client, like, what do you do with the local currency? Do you even need it? Do you want us to just pull the USD on a Addepar? And they're like, is that possible? We're like, sure, that's just changing the field. And it was such a tiny little switch for us, and it saved them so much time, because they just said, over in Sage, all we see is US dollars. No longer, then we can use Addepar for its strength on that. But from an accounting and tax perspective, they're like, we don't really care what the local currencies are doing. Something else I wanted to bring up on that,
Yeah.
John, I might be jumping topics on you here,
That's all
but
right.
it's that when you're using a best in breed, then you have your resources and your staff get to focus on what they're good at. They don't have to learn Addepar and securities and pricing if they don't need to. If they're an accountant and they're sitting there going, I just want to know what my estimated tax is going to be, what's my realized, what's my accruals, my amortization. If they're in Sage, it speaks their language. They can move around in there, and that's their dojo. And I've seen that when people come out of the all-in-ones to this combination, the aha, like, oh, I don't even need to go over there because I'm an accountant, or I'm on the investment side, I don't need to go to Sage. And it creates that automatic, I'm a specialist now, I can live here and really do well.
Kristen kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but from a usability standpoint, we've talked about the family office teams are sometimes understaffed, and both from a number standpoint, and sometimes they just don't have the expertise, experience. They're not trained accountants. They've been kind of put in roles and trying to figure it out, and they're doing as good a job as they can. But when you get into a situation where you really have the best in class and they're innovating around usability, as we talked about with Sage, and I know the same with Addepar, you're working on how to present this information best to the user. And then Ryan, what you're talking about is, make sure it's available to the right user at the right time. And so I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about kind of the usability standpoint, Alejandro too, because you obviously work across a variety of platforms, but we're trying to take the hard data migration, manual entry kind of stuff away, and let them really focus on an aspect of the system that can make their job a little bit easier, but also more value added for the family office.
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in with one quick comment. I mean, if we go back to the beginning of our earlier conversations, every family office needs to act like a business sometimes. And something that could be crucial, and it sounds mundane, it sounds basic, but having a procedures document or policies and procedures in the family office for data, because there are cases where, we saw this just yesterday with one of our clients as well, where it's a seemingly edge case example, but it happens over and over and over again. Maybe it affects 1%, but you see it every single day. And there's things like that maybe you just document the process and say, this is how we handle this thing, because consistency is incredibly important when you're in this consolidation mode of information. When you're trying to centralize everything into one place or a few places, consistently recording these entries can be critical. And that way you can leverage all this data flowing, because it's going to say the same thing in all systems. You're asking different questions with each software. You'd go to, Sage for estimated taxes, but you'd go to Addepar for performance across asset classes. But ultimately, it should be the same or similar underlying data. The dividends and interest transactions are coming from the brokerage account at some custodian. That's going to get pushed into Addepar. It's going to go through Knowledge, or it's going to go to Sage. You're just going to be modeling it differently, but how you handle each type of entry, how you handle each thing in the data management world should be documented, and it needs to be consistent.
Absolutely. Kristen, I think you were gonna say something.
I was going to say, whenever I'm working with family offices, or honestly, actually any company during their evaluation of Sage Intacct, I always say our goal is to turn you from a data aggregator into a data analyst. So I don't want you to have to manually go pull all of these data fields together, or if you're in QuickBooks, consolidate across multiple entities because you're in multiple instances of QuickBooks. it should all talk to each other. We should be able to automate all of those processes so you just have them at a click of a button. And whether the flow of data, it doesn't matter what direction it is. Like I said, it's having it in one place where it makes it easy to look at and you're not wasting your time. I talk to people that are in QuickBooks all day and they're spending hours. I talked to a woman that spends probably up to 3 hours every day just sliding in and out of her different QuickBooks instances. That's it, just literally moving in and out, not doing any work, not doing any real aggregation yet, just the login process. That's an insane amount of time wasted. So this isn't rocket science, right? This is just simply technology speaking to one another to make lives easier. From a usability standpoint, our system is, I would say QuickBooks is probably the easiest thing to use in the accounting world. It's off the shelf. There's pros and cons to that though, right? There are no workflows in place. There is no control in place, right? There's a lot of risk and no compliance. Anybody can do anything, but that's also what makes it easy to use, right?
Mhm.
Our
Yep.
system is probably a step up in terms of usability from a QuickBooks. There are proper workflows in place. We are the only accounting system endorsed by the AICPA, the organization that wrote the book on accounting. And so for me, I've learned a lot about accounting just because of how our system operates.
I'm
which
sorry.
is yeah, I actually enjoy it. What that makes me
Okay,
kind of
good.
sick, I
Okay, good.
guess. But it's been really easy because of the proper workflows already being in place in our system. And when I don't know something, we actually have a help section. And Sarah Page, my solution consultant, that will demonstrate Sage Intacct to our prospects every time. The first time she ever clicked on our help section, I said, don't show the help section. The help section never works. When does help actually work in any application? And I had to apologize to her later on because I was so harsh about it. And I was like, okay, I was wrong. Our help section's actually very good. I know how to use our system now because of the help section. But that's important for people to think about when they're evaluating technology: is how user friendly is this? Is there an ecosystem of people to help me? Is the technology sufficient in its in its learning for me to train myself if I wanted to? These are all very important things to be asking, right? And at what stage and at what journey are you going to make that switch to where it's scalable, to where it's feasible, to when you can learn these things? But we've done this time and time again together to make it easy on people. So I'd say rely on the experts in that field.
Sue, I'm guessing that you heard a lot of stuff that you probably agreed with, but I'd love to get your perspective on kind of usability and what Addepar is doing from that standpoint to continue to enhance the user experience.
Yeah, and I think there was an arc of time where we really were building the feature sets and trying to move quickly on what we were delivering, always focused on the data, right? And I think everything we talk about here, I could always bring back to the data, whether it's trends or technology evolution or, how has family offices changed, right? A lot of this always comes back to the data. But I feel now Addepar is at a point in its trajectory where we are being very thoughtful and spending a lot more time on the usability. As our client base grows, we hear a lot from our very vast, from family office to big enterprise wealth management firms. We're getting a lot of feedback. So whether it's ultimate wealth owners or operations professionals or investment analysts, really specific about usability from many different personas. So I think we're doing a lot in that arena. The other thing is, as technology continues to evolve, right? We've all heard a lot about AI recently, but it really can facilitate usability, because while we promote the best in class, right? And I myself talked about, the best tool for the professional doing the job. There are times where the accountant needs to be in Addepar and needs to be able to move pretty fluently and it's not every day. So it can't be so hard that it takes training every time. So I think we're leveraging AI in ways to be able to make it a little bit more self-evident and easy to use. But I think it's one of the exciting things that our industry has evolved to, that we're now at a place where we can focus on usability, right? I mean, 20 years ago, the problems of harnessing and capturing and normalizing everything were so vast. Like, people were willing to twist themselves into a pretzel if you could get them to the right place. And now we have the luxury of working on usability a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I think I'm gonna kind of move towards wrapping this up, and what I'd like to do for wrapping up the series too is have each of you kind of give us your one kind of last thought on either something we've talked about that you want to emphasize, or something we haven't talked about that you think is important to talk about, or something you see in the future, a trend that you want to mention. I'm just going to go around, and call on you, or if there's somebody that is ready to go now, please let me know. But who wants to kick it off? Ryan, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll kick us off. We're talking best of breed, and you got the prior episodes, we're always talking about integration and onboarding and all of that. I always like to say the technology should be chosen and designed to help you. It should not be the other way around. It is the tail on the dog. You pick it, choose it, design it for your own need and your own, and that evolves into, when you make the choices, then take the time. We had a client one time at a conference, I think half of this audience was on it, when the client said, you have to go slow to go fast. And by what she meant by that was saying, design it and think it out on how. I want to pick on Sage, because Sage, when you buy it, it's a whiteboard. I tell people, you can make it do whatever you want. Don't go crazy and make it the most difficult. Design it for what your needs are. Design the chart of accounts and dimensions for what's going to drive it, and then have it work for you. That's my big takeaway. It's not as much about Knowledger. It's design these things to work for you.
Perfect.
I will completely piggyback off of that. And it's easy for these family offices to get overwhelmed by all of the options that are on the market and coming to the market. But it's really important, to Alejandro's point, is to focus on your strategy, right? To determine what is your long-term strategy. What are the roadblocks to achieving that strategy? What are the required capabilities to make us better, right? And then how can technology help? Essentially, finding the right vendor will come if you have all of those answers already charted out. So, the family offices who embrace and who have gotten the most from technology are those who have already determined and done the data quality, checks up front to make sure that, okay, this is our goal of how technology can help us achieve our actual strategy. It's going to take investment up front in terms of fixing, we can't fix or poor data in, poor data, it's not good. If you don't clean up your data, it's important to understand how each vendor is going to help you meet your needs in terms of selecting them. I just think that people don't take the time, because it's a lot of work to look internally and to say, okay, wow, we kind of have a mess. We have to clean this up first. So I don't see people wanting to do that a lot, and that's because it's difficult. They just expect technology to solve that for them, but it's not going to solve it. Like I said, poor data in is poor data in, right? You're going to get poor outcomes from that. So if you just take a step back and go slow, to Ryan's point, you will have so much better outcomes and results with the technology you choose to invest in.
Perfect. Thank you. Sue.
I'm going to kind of blend both of those things together, because I completely agree that the technology is meant to facilitate your business, right? Facilitate at its root means to make easier. And so it really is not intended to overcomplicate your life. I think the other thing is, I want to separate the concept of technology from data, right? Because the technology, if you think about it, are all these tools or things that you overlay over the data and information that is the life and investments of these families. And so they're choosing technology, back to Alejandro's point, and I'm hoping he picks up on this and runs with it, and data policy are two different things. They work hand in hand, but they should be thought about a little bit separately and together.
Perfect. Absolutely. So, what I thought I would talk about is again kind of a combination, but really it's the message of don't be scared of technology, and don't be intimidated by what you think the price of implementing technology is. Um, what we like to, what I like to tell people is the days of having uh, to go and buy, if you really want a good sophisticated system, to go and buy SAP and pay $1 million and then $100,000 a year for support and those type of things are, you know, is not needed anymore. With the great technologies out there, the cloud-based technology, you can get a true, I'll call it virtual ERP system for to meet your needs, as we've talked about, at a fraction of what it used to cost. And I think what that does is it gives you the ability to, um, Kristen mentioned your staff too. You have a staff philosophy. Where do you want your staffing to be? Do you want them to be data aggregators, which we hope not, or do you want them to be data analysts, which I think is more of a better career path? So using the technology to support your staffing plan and where you want your people to be, elevate your people so they can get the greatest job satisfaction. They can add the most value to the organization, I think is important, especially as you have AI coming in. You know, we're still a ways away from having AI to do everybody's job, and we're kind of sitting on the beach and money's coming into our checking account. We're not quite there yet, but we are to the point where you're starting to see some of the data aggregation capabilities there that can make that process a lot more efficient and a lot less costly. So I would encourage people who are in these roles to think about how can I stay ahead of that curve? How can I add value by taking the data, by using the technology and creating value around what is the data telling you, and how can you make better, quicker, faster business decisions? I think Alejandro is back. So Alejandro, you're going to have the last word on in the series.
I appreciate it, John. I am back. Sorry about that. My comment was going to be geared around towards don't be surprised by something that's so predictable. And as we do reporting processes that are predictable, and if the effort is predictable and it somehow seems like it's always a fire drill, maybe it's a time to step back and look at the workflow, identify what's taking so long at each stage, and consider reorienting that. Because it's not always a process question, it's not always a tech question, it could be both or none. And so just looking at the workflow itself and recognizing that 100% automation is not the goal, how can we go from little automation to more? Or how can we reorganize this month so that I do data audits that are automatic once a day, as opposed to waiting until I have a long list of things to do at the end of the month? And so that's our takeaway. We always think about operational efficiency and just recognizing things that you are going to do over and over again. Take a step back, observe it periodically, and say, with the new tech that I have now, can I do that better?
Fantastic. Great point. So as we wrap it up, I want to give each of you guys a big thanks for being part of this. And I'd like for you to do a little bit of commercial for yourself and what you represent. How can, if you want to say something about what you do and how you do it, or how people can reach you. Doesn't have to be long, but I want to give you guys obviously an opportunity to do that, because I think we all would love to have more conversations with people in the family office space. So Sue, can I kick it over to you first?
Sure. I mean, I think if to be really quick, as I've sort of indicated during the podcast, Addepar is an investment management data reporting and analysis platform. It sort of continues to evolve with all the feature sets and tools that are available, but really the foundation of the data platform. We've done a lot with aggregation, normalization, so that we can be that central data repository that other technology is either layered on or downstream. Happy to answer any questions anybody has. susan.mcdermott@addepar.com.
Thanks, Sue. Ryan.
Thank you for the opportunity, John. This is great, and a little advertisement at the end. I'll return the favor. So think of Knowledger as middleware sitting between Addepar and Sage. I was going to say Sue and Kristen, but same result. You can see us on our website at knowledgerllc.com, and the way to get a hold of us or use us is even easier. Just call John or Whitley Penn, because they can use us. They can be your outsourcing partner on Sage, and they license Knowledger. That is a much better way to do it than buying it direct from us. Buy it from John and let John run it for you.
Thank you, Ryan. Kristen.
So in a nutshell, Sage Intacct is a best-in-class accounting platform and general ledger. Think about 60% of our customers come to us off of a QuickBooks when they're trying to scale, and the primary reasons customers leave QuickBooks for Sage Intacct are multi-entity management, better reporting, better integrations, and cloud-based functionality. We are only available in the cloud. And we are also the only accounting platform that is endorsed by the AICPA. And those are probably the primary reasons I would say people are starting to talk to us, but we have tons of functionality that works very well for family offices. Our AP bill automation is exceptional. It's one of the reasons, but there's a whole wealth of reasons we work well for family offices, but each family office is very unique. So I would say if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or email kristen.keith@sage.com, or we can set up, a formal call if you want to learn more about Sage Intacct.
Perfect. Alejandro.
Thanks, John. We are at TOS. We are an outsourced integration shop for family office technology. And so if we agree that the best of breed approach may be best for many family offices, we're the glue that brings it all together and makes it feel as though you had it all in one. And so we work with teams like this, the tech teams and other providers and family offices all around the country and around the world to help them get the most out of their data. Like Ryan said, have the tools work for you, not the other way around. Think about data quality, think about reporting workflows, think about automation in the right way, and certainly think about getting the tools to speak to each other so that you can get most out of this platform. We can be found online, tos-advisors.com, or you can reach out to me directly, alejandro@tos-advisors.com.
Perfect. Well, I'm again thankful and honored that you guys have spent a lot of your time with me over these last few weeks, putting this together. When I came up with the idea of doing this, you guys were the leaders that I thought about, and really was excited to put this together. So I know you've worked really hard, and we've made this work and put the time together. So thank you for doing this. And with that, I'll end the episode. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you got a lot out of it. We'll have further episodes in the future. We'll dive into some of these topics on a one-by-one basis. But everybody have a great day, and look out for the next episode of Cast Matters. Thanks everyone.